Hey everyone, this is Robert, and thank you for tuning in to Station Square. Hope everybody's staying safe from the whatever hurricane or hurricane or whatever else was happening yesterday. But it was definitely interesting. But regardless, we're here. We haven't been blown away by the winds and all that, these crazy shenanigans. But today we're going to be chatting with somebody who's been in showbiz for pretty much all his life. As you
About
can
that.
clearly see in the background, he's definitely known some of the best in the biz. And I mean, who doesn't love Lucy? I mean, come on, classic. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Geoffrey Mark joining me on today's lovely
Well,
little
hi,
episode.
everybody. It's always good to be with you. Yeah, there'd be more stuff up there, but literally my house shook so much that a lot of my stuff fell off the walls and I haven't put them back up yet.
Yeah, because like yesterday, I was like, it didn't really hit me that bad, but I still felt the shaking. Like, oh my gosh, is my body feeling okay? No,
Yeah.
no, the house was shaking, man.
The house was shaking. And then, tornadoes make this kind of a
Yeah.
whining sound. And I heard it in the back, like distant back. Oh no, not a tornado, too.
No, yeah.
But yeah, the streets around where I live out in the California desert and
Mm.
completely flooded. There was no
Oh,
way to get through anywhere. My electricity went out about 8 times. And here we are. My hair is frizzy for all of the moisture, but we're here and we're able to have fun. So yay.
yeah. Yeah, let me tell you, I think I only had like one or two power outages, but we didn't get a tornado. But yeah, I will just say that the grass is looking really nice from all the rain. I mean, we especially do need it. I mean, I suppose it's a nice change of pace because it's been so hot over here in LA. So, you know,
I
I'll
am
take it. Yeah.
thrilled for the grass. However, I
Oh,
would rather
yes.
not have a storm like that. And then an
Exactly.
earthquake in the middle of it.
No, can we not? Like, regardless, we're here and we're just gonna have a grand old time and we're just gonna chat about, the industry, your career, and get into some really fun topics. So I guess to start this off, I'm not gonna ask like the generic, oh, how did you get started or anything like that, but rather with you, growing up, what were yeah, I think you probably shared this with me, like when we were talking before, but with how it was like when you were a kid, like growing up with a lot of these, you know, media, like with television and movies and stuff, how would you consider your childhood when it comes to being raised with all of this in your household and getting to eventually work in the industry?
I talk among other people in the industry who are around my age, and I am a baby boomer.
Mhm.
And I grew up in New York City, in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, New York.
And I think, do I still say it that way? I think that we were awfully lucky because New York City had the most TV stations you could have back then. There was no cable, there were no platforms, there was no internet, there were no cell phones. It was just broadcast television. And because they had so many hours to fill on local stations that weren't affiliated with networks, they showed very old films. They showed very old television shows and reruns. So my generation got to see Al Jolson and Fanny Brice and Eddie Cantor and W.C. Fields and the Marx Brothers and Mae West constantly. We got to see Abbott and Costello every day. Then we got to watch I Love Lucy, Our Miss Brooks, the classic TV of the 50s from before we were born. Then all the stuff that was going on, including the Ed Sullivan show, who showed us the best of what was out there as far as variety went. So if one was paying attention and if one cared about these things, you can get a pretty good cultural education just by watching television. And it's certainly I don't think the people who own those stations thought of this, but it certainly helped pave the way for me. It gave me a show business education, and a love for older show business. So it was a wonderful start for me.
Yeah. And, being in New York City, because you're pretty much, that's pretty much one of the main hubs of showbiz. And as well as LA, of course. But in New York, there is, the whole Broadway and, nightclubs and stuff, which you also dabbled a little bit into stand-up and, you know,
No,
doing all this extra stuff. Oh, I'm sorry.
when I was growing up in New York City, nightclubs were still huge, and they were huge nightclubs.
Yeah.
Television, all the game shows came from the East Coast. All the soap operas came from the East Coast. All news came from the East Coast. Most commercials you saw were filmed on the East Coast.
Yeah.
There were still not as many, but there were still some variety shows. So New York was a big television hub. Broadway in those days, if you had a hit Broadway musical, chances are at least one of the songs became a hit song. See, today we don't get hit songs from Broadway musicals. Back then, they were a big part of mainstream America. So, again, the influences 30, 40 radio stations. When I was a little boy, 11 newspapers every day. There was so much to be exposed to. Then they had, which they don't have anymore either, very talented people hosting children's television. So someone like Chuck McCann, who had wonderful
Oh,
puppets
Chuck.
and did I think 7 days a week, was on the air in New York City, and who knew that Chuck would someday become a personal friend of mine? Come to see me perform, come to nightclubs where I was performing and check me out. It was a good place to be if one wanted to go into show business.
Yeah. And it's really funny that you mentioned Chuck because, I mean, I still miss him dearly. But he was also somebody else who has been in showbiz all his life.
Yes.
Which he's been doing it from about until the day he actually passed away, but he was still going strong. And of course, we all know that he would eventually go on to have a very successful voiceover career.
Right.
Um, and he was still doing puppets, he was on television, so he's been pretty much, he did commercials, so he was definitely all over the place. So getting to,
What got Chuck started was doing children's shows in New York. He started in the
yeah.
1950s on the old
Hmm.
Dumont network in New York City on Channel 5.
Hmm.
And from about 1955 or 56 until Chuck moved to the West Coast around 1970, Chuck was on the air 5, 6, 7 days a week on two different channels, hosting children's stuff, playing characters. He was amazing, and he was an inspiration because it was done either live or live to tape, meaning they didn't redo anything. And he would read the Sunday funnies to the kids and play all the different characters from the cartoon strips. And he'd run in, he'd play Dondi from an old comic strip called Dondi. They'd play some music, he'd run out, and 20 seconds later, he was Little Orphan Annie, fully in costume. It was amazing. There were
Yeah.
people like Sandy Becker and Sonny Fox who were also in New York, as well as Soupy Sales. I think baby boomers, we baby boomers get knocked a lot. I hear even my own grandchildren, oh, boomers. But I think we were blessed. We came along at a time when medical science was really starting to cure things. Um, we were we lived through the civil rights movement and the women's liberation movement and the gay rights movement, and we unfortunately had to live through assassinations and the Vietnam War. It wasn't all skittles and
Oh.
love, but uh, little me just always wanted to be in show business, and for someone who needed to be fed that way, it was wonderful. And I've been doing it since I'm 15 years old. So I've been doing this a very long time.
Oh, yeah. Um, and it's really interesting because how I actually got became interested in showbiz was it was literally through watching television and then just learning about the stars. I mean, that's pretty much from my parents. You know, they used to watch like shows that would come on from the 60s and 70s, and then you would watch it now on what is it? Classic TV or TV Land, watching some of the old classics like I Love Lucy or Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, and those programs. So, oh, and MASH, which I feel gets still is very under discussed, but it's such a really good show. And that was through like my parents that I was introduced to, oh, so this is what happened in the 50s, this is what happened in the 60s, and talking to people like you, I'm still learning more about the history of like television and the stars and everything that goes on behind the scenes. And you know how to actually break into the industry, which let me tell you, like, I know for somebody like you who has been in it for a while, but I know that it definitely differs from person to person of breaking into it, which is another one of the main topics that we'll also be discussing in a little bit. But for you personally, so after you've been working for a while, I know that you've got the Lucy posters and stuff. I mean, the stuff that hasn't been, knocked down at least, but besides, Lucille Ball and working with all these great comedians, who would you say were very instrumental in shaping your career and you as a person?
Well, first there were the people who actually discovered me. I don't remember if I told this story last we spoke.
Mhm,
My home life was kind of unstable,
mhm.
and there happened to be a Saturday when my father was out of his mind and throwing things, and I was afraid for my safety. And I called at that moment, my best friend in the world, a woman named Phyllis, who is still my best friend in the world, and said, "Come get me. I'm afraid to be here." She said, "Grab a piece of sheet music." That's all she said to me. And I went downstairs out of the apartment building and we started driving. And boy, did we drive, because we ended up outside of Washington, D.C. Phyllis took me to an audition for a dinner theater production of Little Abner. And a wonderful, wonderful man named Frank Anzalone, who was the director, encouraged me. He said, just, he had no idea how young I was. I was 15. He assumed I was over 18. And I sang a song in a voice I didn't know I had, if that makes any sense. Just all of a sudden, this voice came out of me and I got hired. And not to be in the chorus. I was playing Mayor Dogmeat. I thank him tremendously. He didn't fire me when he found out how old I was. But there are people along the way who either encourage you or tell you you're not wrong. You're doing the right thing. Steve Allen, for me, was one of those people. Um, I met Steve after my first book was about to be published, actually. He gave me song lyrics about Ella Fitzgerald he'd written to put into the book. And then we finally spent time together. We became friends. In fact, when Steve passed away, his wife, Jane Meadows, came over to me and she said, "I want you to know you weren't the biggest star Steve ever discovered, but you were the last one." It's like, ooh, I mean, who doesn't want, I mean, I didn't want him to be dead, but who doesn't want to hear that? Another person was someone whose name I don't know if you'll know or not, Jack Riley. Jack was an amazing uh, character actor and comedian and performer musically. Jack was Mr. Carlin of the Bob Newhart Show. And he was in all kinds of Mel Brooks
I
movies.
knew his name sounded familiar. Yes.
So I was producing and writing a documentary about the Bob Newhart Show. And I went to Jack's house to interview him. And about 40 minutes into the interview, he asked me out to dinner on camera. I agreed. Jack thought I was so talented. Jack sponsored me into the Friars Club. Jack sponsored me into a group called Yarmy's Army of major comedians and comedy writers and funny people. You know, you're invited to dinner with these folks, and you're sitting there with Jonathan Winters and Harvey Korman and Don Adams and Pat Harrington Jr. and Don Knotts. And I'm my friend John Regis, who just passed away yesterday, and Jack
Oh,
Sheldon and Ron Carey and Shelley Berman. I could go on and on dropping names. And I became a peer of these people. So you know, practically everybody along the way, Lucille Ball, who doesn't, you know, the honor of interviewing Lucille Ball, and then the honor in writing, you know, this book over here, the Lucy book, and you know, I become friends with her children, who have been one Lucy Arnaz, Desi Jr. have been absolutely wonderful to me. They're incredible human beings. It's why when people say to me, you know, they ask questions about getting started or what do you want out of life? Well, sure, everyone wants more money and good health, but I'm just the luckiest guy on the planet. So many people have helped me. The list is so long of these uber talented folks. And maybe the credit I can take is that I was born with talent and I had the courage to seek them out and to ask for help. And I got it. And I've had a very lovely career because of.
yeah. Now, there's other avenues of like, well, first off, it's really incredible that you've known and had dinner with all of these, like, so many talent that I just can't even count on all these fingers. Like, this was really like, it was the time where, like, you're just sitting with some of the best of just some of the best people that has graced us on the television and movies and just some of the biggest stars in the world at the time. And, you know, I, that really was, I'm just kind of speechless. And that, to this day, I will, I mean, if you were to say to your, like, if there ever comes a time where, like, later in life, you'll just say, "Yeah, I had a dinner with all these amazing, actors and stars." That's just definitely something to, should be proud about because, yeah, that's it really was such an honor, you know?
It
And as somebody
is.
who grew up and just seeing all these stars on TV and then, getting dinner, with these people, it's wow.
I'm
That's
I'm
oh,
grateful
yeah.
that these folks thought I had something to offer
Yeah.
socially or career wise.
Yeah.
Uh, to be able to say I work with Betty White, to be able
Mm.
to, you know, baby boomer, what we've been talking about. You grew up watching Gilligan's Island. Well, Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann, was one of my closest friends in life. Bless her heart, may she rest in peace. Um, you grew up watching the Brady Bunch. I know all the Bradys. You grew up watching um, the Adams Family. I went to school with little Lisa Loring, who was Wednesday. I sat on Lurch's shoulders as a little boy. Um, I've been very, very lucky that the stuff I saw on the screen became real in my life. And oh, the Dick Van Dyke Show, Rosemarie and I were great pals. She just celebrated her 100th heavenly birthday. Rosie wrote the forward for my Ethel Merman book for me. People who are truly talented, almost to a one, want to help others who also have talent. And, and there's a word we haven't used yet, and have ambition. Because talent without
Yes.
ambition is a waste of time. But
Yeah.
people saw that I was on fire to succeed and had the talent. The people who treat you meanly are the people who are not very talented themselves. I've had a few people be not so nice to me through the years, either because they were just very unhappy people, or they were very insecure people. But the number of people who treated me badly is this big compared to the number of people who have been wonderful to me. So I don't dwell
Right.
on the negative people. They're funny stories, some of the negative people. I don't know if you remember who Robert Stack was from The Untouchables, the TV series, but
S-
The Untouchables was a TV series produced by Desilu long before there were any Untouchables movies. And I happened to be going from Los Angeles to New York on a first class flight with Mr. Stack, and I needed to interview him for the Lucy book. And I said to him in the lounge, could we, when we get to New York, could I take you out for a drink somewhere and interview you? He said, well, we've got 5 hours to kill before New York. Why don't you, interview me on the plane? And he arranged, this is back in the days of the big wide body jets, for us to sit where the flight attendants sat to get some privacy. There was a little couch area with a curtain for them to like relax a little bit. And I began asking him questions, and he had coffee served to us. And finally, he turned on me. What is it with you gay men? Why do you keep picking the bones of dead women? Why can't you leave Lucille Ball alone? And I said to him, Mr. Stack, I agreed to be interviewed. I arranged for us to sit here. If you're unhappy with me, I'll go away, please. He said, well, no, no, no. Finish what you were doing. But the interview obviously didn't go very, I didn't get very much information out of him. But so I go back to my seat. Now he's in first class. I'm in business class. And I'm just sitting there on the aisle, and I see like every flight attendant on the flight is marching toward me. And I thought, great. They're going to put a parachute on me. He's arranged for me to be kicked off the plane, and I'm going to be dropped over Philadelphia or something. No, the flight attendant, the head flight attendant came to me and said, on behalf of, I'll say it was United Airlines and Mr. Stack, we would like to thank you for being here. And she pulled out a magnum of champagne that he bought for me. Now, I'm a recovery person. I haven't had a drop of alcohol in 34 years. I gave the magnum away to somebody. But, I got Robert Stack on a bad day, obviously. Perhaps it was because he wasn't traveling with his wife and he felt a little embarrassed. But these kinds of things happen where people are rude for some reason. Very few people are rude constantly. I won't mention names of people who are, but I've come
I mean,
across
yeah.
them. And yeah, they're rude all the time. It's because they don't think that they are very talented and they're insecure, and everybody else's success bothers them. To me, Robert, if you succeed, I go, yay, good for him. And that means there's more success available for me. I don't envy other people's success. That just spurs me on to get more for myself.
Yeah. And that's so important that you touched on that because we all want each other to succeed in this crazy industry and just seeing this support and passion for each other. Like, hey, if I come across somebody and I listen to their stuff and I'm like, oh, they good. Maybe I should help them out. And they, in return, they do the same. And it's so true because, like, I know that you kind of see this little booth that I have behind me, but especially for voiceover, it's like, um, because I know that for VO, like from my experience, I've done improv, I've been on stage, and I will say that the voiceover like industry, in spite of a few bad apples, like everyone is just really like, hey, like we really want this person to, you know, I want them to be on this show, or like, hey, maybe they could be perfect. Like, if there's a part that's might be a little out your range, then you could refer to somebody else who'd be a better fit because this is what we do. And it's kind of similar to like, hey, maybe I know this one person, like say if they're looking for somebody who has this cadence in their voice, I would say, I do know this guy. I know this Geoffrey Mark. He can be really good for this part. So it's really like, I know they say it's not who you know, it's who knows you, and that's very much true when it comes to, especially in voiceover. Like, I
Well,
know that,
the
yeah,
voiceover industry has changed
it
because
really has.
once upon a time it wasn't open like that. There were about 12
Mm-mm.
people voicing everything, and they didn't want people coming in because they were making
Yeah,
fortunes voicing
I've
everything.
heard, yeah, I've heard
You know,
so many stories.
you
Yeah,
know, there was a time when Mel Blanc and
yeah,
June Foray and
Paul Frees,
a dozen,
Dawes,
yeah, a
yeah,
dozen people like that just voiced everything. Even more recently, when some of those people had passed away already, it was a very tight ship. It has since opened up. And I think
yeah.
thanks to my pal Bob Bergen, who has
Oh,
really,
yeah,
really struggled to make voice over the work to be respected and legit, and he's the sweetest man on the face of the earth.
great
So
guy.
so
Yeah.
and also the guy to go to when you want to talk about the strike, because he knows everything that's going on.
Oh, yeah,
When I like I'm going to be interviewed uh this coming Thursday about a new project, uh, a red carpet I have to walk. And I've been told exactly what I can and cannot say because Bob knows.
yeah.
But that esprit de corps you're talking about among voice actors, I'm thrilled that it's there now. But trust me, young person, it was not always there, and I'm
Well,
glad to hear that it is.
yeah. Yeah, I've actually talked to, um, if you want to watch the interview that I did with somebody named Chuck McKibben, because he was actually Mel Blanc's agent and assistant during the days when he was working. Like, this was back during the days when Mel was literally everywhere, and there were stories of like, oh yeah, like it was literally like back in the day, it was literally Mel or Dawes Butler or Paul Frees and those people. Like, it was very just a close, tight knit because there wasn't like a lot of opportunities for new actors. I'm just really thankful that I think by the time we got to like I mean, especially now, there's been a lot of new folks that are just getting into the industry. And you know what? I'm just really glad that, the actors that have been doing this for so long, they're like, you know what? We welcome you with open arms. Like, and everybody's, yeah.
I can remember my buddy, may he rest in peace. Gary
Mhm.
Owens and I were very close friends.
Gary, yeah.
Now, Gary is the one who got me my first radio show because he felt you have a talent for this, young man.
Yes, you have a really good talent.
But Gary was working 7 days a week
Yeah,
on like five different radio shows,
tirelessly. Yeah.
plus doing all of these cartoons, including Space Ghost,
Oh my gosh.
and
Wow.
he was a narrator or an announcer on Burry Cookies presents Bewitched. His voice was everywhere.
Yeah.
The man worked tirelessly and constantly. And he's another one who, if he thought you had talent, Gary was your biggest fan. I can't tell you how many times he had me on his radio show before he arranged for me to have my own radio show on KRLA in Los Angeles. Now I have Geoffrey Mark Plays Ella, which is my own radio show, as you well know, playing around the country and on different platforms as a podcast. But it was Gary who got it started for me.
Yeah.
We really could do an hour or 5 or 12 about how I've been helped through the years. I'm a lucky guy. And obviously, I have something to offer, and I'm grateful for that. I cannot take credit for being very smart. I am smart, but I was born that way. There are people who think I'm handsome. Well, thank you. And you're good looking too. Neither one of us can take credit for that. It's how we're born. What we can take credit for is how we use it. So
Yeah.
hopefully, I've been using my talent well.
Yeah. So to close out this interview, like, what is, I mean, you can probably share and promote your books because I know you've been doing quite a few of them, and just give any last thoughts or advice on, where everything's going to be moving forward in the future. And yeah, just closing thoughts in general.
Sure, I have 6 minutes and 33 seconds to do that.
Yeah.
Well, you see the Lucy book here. Next
Yeah.
Christmas, the new Lucy book is coming out. The original Lucy book, for those of you who didn't buy it, and why didn't you, is a compendium of Lucille Ball's television career from live television in the 40s till she died, with a foreword by Steve Allen. The new Lucy book has new interviews, more updated information, a new foreword by Fran Drescher, and it's also going to include her radio shows and her films. My autobiography, my memoir, The Devil Was Born in Brooklyn, is also coming out late next year or earlier the following year. We were going to have an album for Christmas. Geoffrey Mark sings the Ella Fitzgerald songbook, and just life stuff has gotten in the way. We might have an EP of it for this Christmas, but for next Christmas, also look for my new album. I have my radio show. I've made a conscious decision, but after these next two books are published, I'm not going to write any more books. I've reached an age. This is a landmark age year for me. My birthday is in September. That I
Mine's
don't want
too.
that. Oh, well, happy birthday to both of us. Only I'm a
Yeah.
lot older than you are.
Yeah.
That I don't want to spend the rest of my life in front of a computer. While I'm still young enough and healthy enough to get out there, I want to get out there. So I want to spend the rest of my performing life singing, doing comedy, being on shows like yours, and having fun. So that's my immediate future. I'm going to be doing some traveling this fall to see friends and loved ones I haven't seen in quite a while. And then hopefully you'll see me wherever you happen to be at a nightclub nearby.
Yeah.
So that's my plan. Now, how is it all going to work out? In show business, you never know. But as long as I keep plugging into the gratitude and keep plugging into how grateful I am for all the wonderful things that have happened to me. Yeah, it's true. I lost my partner 4 years ago. It still hurts.
Yeah.
Perhaps I'll meet somebody new. There's always the hope for the future. I have two stepchildren and two grandchildren who are at the moment not speaking to me. Will that change? Maybe, or maybe not, because I can't control other people. All I can do is try to be the best Geoffrey Mark that I can. Try and be funny. I haven't been very funny today. I'm sorry. I don't think I've made you laugh once, which is, I must have earthquake, hurricane, tornado hangover today that I'm being kind of serious about everything. But I want to make people laugh. I want to entertain you. I want to make people feel good. And as long as I can keep doing that, I'll be a very, very, very happy camper. What do you see for your future? What are you looking forward to?
I'm always somebody who's really optimistic about the future. So what I would like to see in the future is just more, definitely a lot more of, I mean, less division and more cooperation. Because as we know, this country, like, I could just go on about politics, which I definitely do not have the time to fill out the space here. But
Good,
all I'll
good.
say, like, it's a huge mess right now, and I want this time to be a time of reflection and to be like, hey, I know there's some really messed up stuff that is going on right now, and the best thing that we could do is work together and just keep fighting. Like, that's exactly what the strikes are doing. Just fighting for a better future, just fighting for equality, and just, you know. Just
Give
keep
me
going.
1 minute. What do you see about Robert for you personally?
Okay.
What are you looking forward to in your life?
Well, I'm looking forward to my life. Looking forward to be just the voice, just a person that can change lives. And if I'm able to give somebody, if someone's having a bad day, and I'm able to make their day just a little bit brighter, then I'm doing something right. Whether it's through a podcast, through a voiceover performance, writing, content, that's pretty much what I'm aiming for. That's, pretty much me because I always love creating and expressing myself. And if it touches somebody else, bravo. So that's pretty much where I see in the future.
Well, I will share with you some baby boomer wisdom.
Okay.
And what I mean is, I'm going to quote a TV show. This is from the Mary Tyler Moore Show. You want to know what it's all about? A little song, a little dance, a little seltzer down your pants. So keep that in mind and you keep smiling. At least I got you to smile, not actually laugh, but I got you to smile.
Yeah. Amen to that. So, thank you, Jeffrey, for stopping by today, and thank you for being my 200th guest. Actually,
Wow.
yeah,
If I would have known that, I
milestone.
would have sung for you today.
Uh, Probably next time if we do a part two or something in the future.
You have me back. I'll send you a singing track and you play
Sure.
the music and I'll sing on this end and we'll entertain the folks.
Yes, exactly.
I would
So,
love to.
yep. And until then, thank you all for watching and stay tuned for next time. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay creative. And this is Robert Jackson signing out. And good night, folks. Good evening. And I bid you adieu.